Hello everybody, and I'm Lawrence Tam here. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about what crisis can expose. We all hate experiencing a crisis, but let's face the fact that because we hate it, because oftentimes we focus on the negativity, how it impacts us, but there's a learning lesson that we can take away from, because everything has a lesson. That's my fundamental belief. And the lesson that we can learn from every negativity or any particular, especially with a crisis that we've experienced in 2020, is that it actually shows us our vulnerabilities. Now, you might say, well, how is that helpful? Well, let me show you in this video on why exposing our vulnerabilities actually help us be better in ourselves, have a better practice. Let's get right to it. Hey there, it's Lawrence Tam here, and thank you for joining me always on these videos on Facebook. You can always check us out on Drive Your Practice in YouTube and also on the Facebook. But more importantly, we actually just started our podcast as well, so you can now download some of these videos to transform into your ears on a podcast channels. Go to I guess any podcast network that you love. We're on most of the podcast channels, so you can actually just download that. It's under Your Chiro Coach. That's sort of where you can just find us. You can find the channel itself called Your Chiro Coach. That's the podcast name, and so you can actually stream it and download some of these videos or an audio format, so you can actually listen to it while you drive. So just go right to that. So in today's video, let's get right to that today. So today we were talking about crisis. The couple of key elements is that what I think is we need to understand is when things are going really well. Let's think about that. When things are going really well in your practice or in business or in your life, what happens to us? Well, we kind of live in comfort, right? We just kind of go, yes, we want to grow our business, or we want to be better in our fitness, or we want to be in our health. But let's face it, we kind of just want stability, and sometimes we want growth. And oftentimes what happens is that we kind of really just get into this comfort state. We do our best, we try hard, or we think we try hard to really try to improve, but there's no urgency there. And because there's no urgency, we think we're just doing busy work, and we do, it doesn't mean that you're not working hard, but it's not as hard as you possibly could. And I think that in 2020, when the pandemic hit, it really changed the focus on, I hope that it did for you, it changed the focus on what is possible for you. So I think business, just like health, right? When you think about it in a health crisis, we see this in patients all the time. When you think about your patients, what do, right? What do? They come to you when what? When they have a problem, not when they're actually healthy. They usually come to you when they have a problem that they are experiencing in that moment. And in that moment, they decide to do one thing. They decide to go, you know what? I think I need help. I need help now because there's a certain diagnosis that's come about, or I'm experiencing some sort of pain, or it's stopping me from living my normal life. So I better do something about it. And if God forbid, but just say you have a very big health crisis, just like it's a heart attack or a stroke or something really massive, it changes how you see life. It changes how you act, how you behave, and how you do things. Well, this is exactly what happens in business. When things are going really well, or at least in comfort, you're not going bankrupt or anything, but you're not growing as much as you want to, but it's steady, but it sucks. So you want to do this, but you're over here. There's not that urgency. There's no need to grow. And so therefore, we don't necessarily do all the things that's necessary to grow or to get to that next level or be better. And so until we actually get that urgency, just like a diagnosis, it doesn't force us to do anything. Well, this is what exactly happened with COVID, right? This year, COVID created a crisis that we have to pay attention to. Everybody in this world had to pay attention to it. Now, some of us may have ignored it in the beginning, but it got to a peak state around April of this year in 2020 where we're going, hey, you know what? We need to do something about this right now. We need to do something. If we don't do something, we're going to, things could go really bad. And so what happens? You start going to either, number one, people panicked, or you go, you know what? Let's take control of this. Let's control this narrative. And I think what happens is that it forces, I think what it did for my clients at least, or everybody in terms of practitioners, is that it allows you to really recognize what your vulnerabilities was in your business, because you don't see those vulnerabilities. You're not going to see those challenges that you're experiencing or you did experience until it became a problem. Because now your comfort level is no longer here anymore. We want to just get back to comfort. And so therefore it creates these challenges, and that's what a pandemic does, right? It creates these problematic things that we need to kind of consider. What vulnerabilities has it exposed? Well, let's think about that. I think if you divide it into personal life, your personal stuff vulnerabilities, and you also have your business vulnerabilities, it's going to create a couple of things. Number one, like think about your personal ones. It showed up in terms of how it demonstrated how you might actually handle stress and unpredictability. So ask yourself this question. How have you done, especially during the peak of it, how were you able to handle your stress and manage your own stress and unpredictability, what was going to happen next month, let alone maybe even next week, right? How did you handle that? Did you handle it well or didn't you handle it well? Did you panic or did you actually go into action mode? I'm not saying there's right or wrong, but it exposes us on how we handle the situation, because it's a preview of how we might handle situations in the future when things like this happens again. And it might not be a pandemic, but it may be something, a crisis. Maybe something happens, maybe a leak in your practice, or maybe someone stole some money from your practice, or you lose a staff. Well, how would you handle yourself in the situation? Now, in those circumstances, they're happening individually, which means it's happening only to you. A pandemic happened to everyone, so it's kind of, there was like, this brotherhood and sisterhood that we're all doing it together. But how would you handle it if you didn't have that, right? So that's something to think about. How did you handle your emotions? Were you constantly in sleepless nights, or are you worried about what's happening around the corner? How did you handle that emotion during that period of time? Were you frustrated? Were you angry? Or were you okay? Those energies don't actually change anything. So being angry or being frustrated isn't going to help me. Let's go into action to do something about that. What did it expose? Did it expose your financial health? Maybe that you relied on the consistent income, that you actually don't have the necessary financial safety net of maybe having some savings, that if things go badly for the next 2 to 3 months with no income, can you survive? Maybe it affected your physical health. Are you able to handle stress in those moments, like lack of sleep, or your ability to be able to handle those things matter, right? So that's from a personal level. So I think these are really good questions for us to kind of evaluate, because now that if you ask the question, if you were honest with yourself, it allows us to kind of make the necessary changes over the last 6 months, which you should have done. If it's never too late, it's always a better time to know now and start making those changes and going, hey, maybe if it exposed my financial health, maybe I should start saving, right? Maybe I should at least start saving my 3 months worth of savings so that I know, right, that I have that buffer just in case and anything should ever happen. From the business side of things, let's get really interesting, right? So on the business side of things, how stable was your practice? Did you have acute patients all the time, or did you have loyal patients who came back as soon as you were opened, right? Did you have transient clients who just kind of came for, acute problems, or did you have patients who are knocking on your door, waiting for you to, telling you should be open, right? What kind of practice did you have? What about your structure of your business? Financially, were you okay? Were you living paycheck to paycheck? Or were you needing that constant flow of patients coming through the door in order for your business to survive? This is something to think about, right? What about your team, right? We all talk about team. We never think about our staff. Because in moments of crisis, it actually shows the vulnerability of how the team reacts. Were each one of those team members, were they on your side? Or were they thinking about themselves? If you have a team culture and you said in one of your value system is that, hey, we're all in, right? We're all in. Were they? Were they all in that they'll do whatever it takes to make sure the business survives? Or are they in it for themselves on how that impacts them and not forgetting about what the team and forgetting about what the business matters to them? I don't know. The answer to that is up to you. What about patient loyalty? We talked about that. Do they fully understand chiropractic? Do they fully understand what it means to them? Did you create the retention and reactivation? Were they back in a second, or did you have to try to convince them? Were you working, or maybe sometimes an exposure is that maybe were you working too hard? Some of my clients actually recognized they were working way too hard. They're working way too many hours, opening way too many shifts, and they recognized that what they need to do was actually decrease their hours, going back, working less hours, less days, same amount of money, same amount of patients, and spend more time with their family. Isn't that what this is all about? Right? It's not always about profit. It's not always about growth. Profit means the profit is for you is profit in time, not just in money. Some of my clients were recognized is that maybe this crisis actually exposed to us is that we were actually going after the wrong goals and wrong targets. It's not always about numbers. It's actually more about freedom, right? And going after that is what's more important. Are you going after the right targets in 2021? Are you going after the right things? Are you focused on the right things in your business? Are you chasing out way too many new patients when all these clients are coming in that you're actually losing out the back door? What it also does, the crisis does, it actually exposes maybe the holes in your practice. We just kind of mentioned some. Maybe there's holes in your team. Maybe you don't have the right associates, or maybe you don't have the right CAs, or maybe you don't have the right team structure, or maybe you are not a great leader. Maybe you don't actually have the right structure or the leadership skills that is required for you to lead them through a crisis. Maybe your vision isn't strong enough, or maybe your communication of that vision isn't strong enough to guide them to where you need to go. It's up here, but you may not be able to communicate it. Are you leading your team well? Do you constantly need new patients versus maybe getting better conversions? Do you always need to have, maybe you need to focus better on have better communication with your patients and explaining chiropractic to them, or what you offer, or what your products and services are. Maybe it's about having better marketing. Maybe you need to have a better brand recognition so people actually know what you do and why you do. So you see, these are all the things that you could be taking away from these moments. But these moments of crisis is just my stream of consciousness right now talking about these things. It's about what has the crisis exposed for you personally and in your business, and have they change or fundamentally help you shift and change on how you looked at your business. See, the smart ones, the successful ones in a few years' time are the ones who took this opportunity to make the changes that are necessary, plug up the holes, move forward to improve what they already had and know that they can get better, versus the people who are frustrated, angry, and or just let this whole incident just pass by and never did anything and go back to what was normal beforehand and will still have the same problems. That's a declining practice. You have a choice to either declining practice or you have a compounding practice that are getting better and always trying to improve. The choice is up to you. And this is one of the reasons why I created the Practice Bootcamp, which is coming up in November. This is the first announcement here, is that you should go check that out. If you need to understand how to get to a profit practice and a freedom practice, you understand the 8 business drivers that you need to focus on a daily and weekly, monthly basis for you and your team in terms of leadership and growth and finances and products and services and sales and marketing. That is what Practice Bootcamp is about. If you're interested, go check out Lawrence Tam /bootcamp, lawrencetam.com/bootcamp. Go check that out. We're going to be doing a live 1.5 day event with speakers coming through, and we're going to stream it for associates. Some streams are going to be for associates. Some streams are going to be for owners. But the most important point we're trying to do is help you find more passion and more purpose, but more importantly, have more profit in your practice without you working more. I'm trying to get you to work less. I'm trying to get you to work less and have more profit. That's my goal for you. So if this is of interest to you, go check that out. Go to lawrencetam.com/bootcamp, and let's work together to build a successful business for you. Have more profit in your practice. If you know that what you've done so far hasn't been working, you should do something about it. Whether you come to me or anybody else, it doesn't really matter, but you should do something about it. I don't care what it is, but do something to change. You're the only person that can change your practice. You're the only person who can change you so that you can be better. Remember, we need you. This profession needs you. Your community needs you. So therefore, it has to be on you to decide to make a difference. So I hope you join us, lawrencetam.com/bootcamp. Like I said, watch these videos on Facebook. Watch us on YouTube. Follow us on a podcast called Your Chiro Coach. Go download those episodes. I hope this has been helpful to you, and hope that you are able to reflect upon some of the vulnerabilities that you might be exposed to in your practice and in yourself, and you make the necessary corrections so that 2021 and beyond is going to be a better, much better year for you. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
It's all well and good to have a successful practice, but in the grand scheme of things, I want to make an impact.
The biggest thing that it's enabled me to do is to develop better relationships with people.
The reason I joined was because I was feeling a bit isolated in practice.
Now I feel like I have a tribe.
Lawrence definitely provides a really good insight from outside of my square.
You really start to find your true identity. When you're part of a group that supports you, which is what I feel Nitro does, you get some quality results.
I was caught up in the hustle side of chiropractic. So now having that freedom, still being just as busy and even more successful.
I think that we all elevate and rise together.
Really allows me to face my own fears and blockages.
It's about being with like-minded people, but being about people who want the same thing, which is like this willingness to support each other and hold each other accountable at the same time.
We went from seeing an average of 140, 150 people to seeing now 250 people.
I do have the confidence to, have that voice and make those changes. And I definitely wouldn't have been able to do that without Nitro.
It's not trying to create me to be something else. It's trying to create me to be the best version of me.